Among the events that define the human experience, either as a participant or a witness, the birth of a human being brings along with it some of the most powerful emotions we ever feel. Small wonder that news of a pregnancy is almost never met with indifference. Whether or not a child was planned or wanted, learning one is on the way produces strong reactions ranging from overflowing joy to overwhelming anxiety. While there is much our science has taught us about the biology of birth, from the knitting together of DNA from each parent to provide the blueprint for a new body, to the differentiation of cells and the formation of specialized organs and tissues, to the process of labor by which the new human makes its debut in the theater of experience, there is just as much speculation about when and how a developing cluster of cells obtains humanity. On this edition of the Temporal Reverie, I want to consider some possibilities that not only might explain how personality as well as personhood arise during the complex chain of events leading up to birth, but also how each newborn's entire life journey may have been negotiated long before the collision of sperm cell with egg at the milestone of conception. Most people tend to think of the beginning of a life as closely tied to the process by which a human body forms and is eventually born. But it's possible that everything about a human being that provides it with identity and individuality may have been negotiated and decided long before biology comes into play. It may be that we each participated in making choices about the fate of our own lives that were obscured from us when the time came to arrive as newborns on the earth. There is so much speculation about what life is like after death, if any, but so little about what life might be like before our birth. If our time in the theater of experience is just a chapter in a larger and more nuanced life story, then the process by which we arrive conceals knowledge of any prior life. And in that sense, our awakening as newly conceived and born humans is also a sleep and a forgetting of our eternal and authentic selves. The extent to which most people want to know about the beginnings of a human life is typically rooted in the question of when life begins. Questions of reproductive choice have turned this area of inquiry into a highly charged emotional, spiritual, and political debate. And it seems that all sides are looking to determine where to draw the crisp, bright line before which there is no life, and after which life is a certain fact. My own view is that the debate is usually wrong-headed, stemming from the way we think about life. Here's what I mean. People who are strongly opposed to abortion of any kind champion the position that life begins when sperm fertilizes egg at conception. Here's the problem with that position. Leaving aside in vitro fertilization for the moment, before there is conception, there is copulation. And long before copulation, both the egg cell and the sperm cell that provide the genetic material for reproduction are alive. The egg cell was alive. The sperm cell was alive. When the elements of conception are both alive before they meet, it's absurd to speak of conception as a genesis of life that did not exist previously, because life did exist before conception. If either the sperm cell or the egg cell were not alive, there would be no conception possible. Life is not the result of fertilization, because life is a requirement of fertilization. In fact, if you care to be quite literal about the process, prior to conception, the sperm and egg cells constituted two living things, while the fertilized egg is a single living thing. Conception is not the creation of new life, but actually a reduction of life from two living things to just one. What conception does is kick off a process by which a new formulation of DNA takes place, followed by the gradual transformation of a single-celled organism into increasingly more complex arrangements, resulting in a fetus that, if brought to full term and born, becomes a human baby. Life has only ever had one beginning. Scientists estimate life began on the earth about 3.5 billion years ago. From that time forward, life has become wildly diverse, with species emerging and becoming extinct, and individual members of a species providing new expressions of life. But no act of human reproduction, nor the subsequent and eventual birth of a human baby due to that reproduction, can actually be called the beginning of life. Debates about the beginning of life are really attempts to decide the answer to related but different questions. When can it be said that the developing human body that results from successful reproduction has become a person? When does it acquire intelligence, no matter how rudimentary? When does it possess a soul? Because of political, moral, and legal concerns, again, the strong desire on all sides is to find or define a clear-cut and obvious point before which there is no personhood, and immediately after which there is full personhood. But as with the conventional arguments about the beginning of life, the desire to find a binary on-off moment is riddled with absurdity and pursued without regard to the actual, gradual unfolding of a new human being. As someone who has been convinced by the growing body of evidence in the reality of reincarnation, I believe that in many cases the soul that becomes bound to a newly developing fetus existed long before conception. The most interesting question, it seems to me, is how does an existing instance of consciousness, with self-awareness and with memories that come to be attached to a new body? Along with that question are others, such as if the soul associated with a newborn was once fully conscious, how does all of that history get lost temporarily during the new incarnation? How does a new conscious mind come into being? What connection exists between past lives and the consciousness of a current incarnation? First, consider the relationship between body and soul. If you believe that the soul has eternal existence, the fact of the body's mortality makes it plain that the body cannot be, and therefore is not, a human person. The body is housing, transportation, and interface for the human soul as it journeys through the theater of experience. It provides the facilities for spirit to participate in the human experience. Somehow, during the gestation of a new body, the energy of spirit belonging to an eternal living consciousness is joined to that body in preparation for its human journey. When the body dies, this connection between body and soul ends. The body begins the process of decomposition and eventually becomes a collection of various chemical compounds. The soul, no longer having physical access to the material world, rejoins the larger reality of divine consciousness, where it has the chance to review the experience of the life just ended. It also needs to assimilate the temporary identity it had during the recent incarnation with the authentic and eternal self that contains the entire life experience spanning multiple lifetimes. So a connection forms between body and soul with the body that will be used for a new incarnation, a connection that ends with the death of that body. Our study of human physiology tells us that providing and maintaining this connection is a function of the central nervous system. It is said that our souls, that which makes us truly who we are as a consciousness unique to ourselves, is something that is in this world, but not of this world. The cells and organs of the central nervous system is the interface, the point of contact by which our consciousness participates in this world. It's where our sensory inputs are received and passed as stimuli to our consciousness. And it's where responses to living experiences are turned into the actions by which we affect events in the world with our actions and our words. As I have said in previous episodes, I believe that all of physical reality arises from the material of pure consciousness that is shaped by the mind of God into space, time, matter, and energy. As living beings created as islands of consciousness in the image of God, an essential part of the process of incarnation involves binding our consciousness to a new body. However our spirit, our consciousness, exists or is composed outside the reality of a human life, it's clear that while experiencing an incarnation, our spirit is tightly localized around the body in general and the central nervous system in particular. But a newly fertilized egg may have a unique DNA signature from which a central nervous system eventually arises. As a single-celled organism, there is no nervous system yet. Since a working central nervous system is required to support the joining of consciousness to a living human body, the fertilized egg is incapable of hosting the soul for the time being. Certainly the cell is alive and carries with it the potential for unfolding a human being. But without connection to a soul, there is no human being present. As the fertilized egg divides and evolves into more complex formations of living tissue like blastocyst, zygote, embryo, and then fetus, the process of cell differentiation results in the emergence of tissues and then organs. The beginnings of a central nervous system don't appear until the embryo is about 3 weeks old. But once the central nervous system begins to form, the electrochemical energy specific to that tissue acts like a magnet that can attract and sustain a cloud of consciousness. The amount and complexity of consciousness that coalesces around the developing fetus is determined by the growing complexity and eventual nominal function of the central nervous system. So the appearance of the soul, which is necessary to assert the existence of a human being, does not happen instantly at any point in a pregnancy. Instead, like a sunrise, the soul is gradually drawn to the body as the developing nervous system becomes functional and able to support a larger cloud of consciousness. If consciousness is what makes us beings in the image of God, and that fundamental nature is gradually drawn to and bound to a new body, then indeed we come trailing clouds of glory. How does the specific consciousness of a reincarnating spirit become drawn and bound to a particular developing fetus? How does the returning soul know when and where to go in order to be born? The whole point of reincarnation is to provide repeated opportunities for human experience by which our spiritual evolution, growth, and learning can take place. The path of this development is not random. It matters when and where we are born, based on decisions made before each incarnation about what the next human experience will contain, what opportunities it will provide, what challenges it will offer, what others will be met, what goals must be achieved, what karmic debts must be paid, and what legacy will be left behind. Making these choices begins to define the traits and details of the life needed to create a suitable human experience. It drives requirements like gender, race, sexual orientation, physical features, talents and gifts, social, economic, and political conditions, and the general evolutionary state of humanity as a whole, as indicated at different points in history. Taken as a whole, the kind of life needed to support the chosen aims by a newly reincarnating spirit has a particular set of vibrational qualities, a unique signature by which it can be identified. This set of vibrational qualities is how incarnation and soul are matched and synced. The vibrational patterns of the soul anticipating incarnation begins to change in order to be compatible with the intended destination. As this vibrational change takes place, the accumulated knowledge, memories, and consciousness of that soul produces the formation of a new subconscious mind, upon which a new conscious mind will be based. This new subconscious mind also draws upon the archetypes and patterns found in the collective unconscious to provide more of what it needs for the journey to come. The actual joining of soul with body begins based on the increasing harmonization of the soul's vibrational pattern with the vibrational pattern belonging to the particular destination body and subsequent life journey. The vibrational pattern of the body is a reflection of the cosmic patterns expressed by the entire universe as felt at the time and place of birth. As the body's central nervous system is able, and as the vibrational state of the universe gets closer and closer to matching the necessary pattern, the body attracts more and more of the incarnating soul's consciousness into its surrounding cloud of localized consciousness. This process culminates at the corresponding time and place of birth, when the last of the incarnating consciousness is finally bound to the new body as subconscious mind, and as the fetus emerges from the uterus and into the waiting theater of experience. The memory of prior incarnations is now directly unavailable to the newly forming conscious mind, so that this life's experience is written on a blank slate of ego and conscious experience. The vibrational patterns of the universe at any given time and place are reflected in part by the system of metaphysics we call astrology. The positions of stars, planets, and houses don't define the traits of a human being. Instead, the traits associated with a given natal chart indicate and reflect the vibrations felt at the time and place of birth that correspond to the vibrational state selected for the incarnation. This vibrational match is what makes it possible for the soul to enter the physical world at the right time and place to be joined with the proper body and future life experience. The formation of a conscious mind is a product of living experience. Prior to birth, the relative sensory isolation of the fetus by the uterus, as well as the incomplete assimilation of the incarnating subconscious mind, keeps the development of the conscious mind pretty limited. However, once birth takes place, the formation of the conscious mind proceeds at breathtaking speed for a couple of reasons. First, at the moment of birth, the binding of the new soul as subconscious mind is complete and ready to support the emergence of a corresponding conscious mind. Second, arrival in the theater of experience brings with it a flood of sensory stimuli in the form of sound, light, temperature, tactile information from other people, air currents, sunlight, clothing, and so on. It's the surge in sensory stimuli, as well as the right vibrational match as indicated by the natal chart, that brings physical development and completed binding of soul to body that marks the true beginning of a life, if not life. So the sum total of all our histories, as well as the knowledge and wisdom we gain from them, is once more projected into the physical world for another journey through the theater of experience. While we carry all that learning with us, it remains out of reach of our conscious minds, but nevertheless influences us from the dreams and intuitions that arise from the subconscious mind. Freshly arrived with innocence and a new conscious mind waiting to be filled, we come into being and begin our next adventure. Next time on the Temporal Reverie, we look at the grand arc of existence that each of us experiences as we travel through the physical world, return to the domain of divine consciousness, consider the lessons just learned and lessons still to come, then repeat the cycle again. How does that cycle of incarnation begin for each of us? And what becomes of us when we have reached our most complete selves and our finest humanity, and the lessons are done? Carl Sagan liked to say that we are made of star stuff, meaning the atoms and molecules of our bodies were forged in stars that long ago lived and died. While that's true of the body, what we truly are is made of God stuff. As beings of consciousness made in the image of the divine, we come to this world to partake in all the wonderful and terrible kinds of experience this world offers. We come, having chosen the lives we will live, to learn and grow. We come with God at our side and with God in our hearts, trailing clouds of glory behind us all the way. I'd like to know what you think about this program. You can write to me at the email address on the screen. My thanks to God for this chance to share with all of you, and may the gifts of love, joy, peace, and enlightenment come to you all.